Good morning. I am Maria Cadbury from Persollo, a social e-commerce and AI-powered influencer marketing analytics platform. You can run a one-click checkout on your social and influencer marketing activity and live AI-powered social media post analyzer. Thank you for joining me this morning and our stellar lineup for the Influence for Good and Social Purpose webinar. We are living in unprecedented times where we have retreated indoors to literally keep ourselves safe. And as the NHS reiterate time and time again, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. While we worry for each other's health, many of us are evaluating how the economy will work and how that affects us. With that in mind, we wanted to address how brands react in a new world order and specifically how they work with influencers and talent. Influencer marketing was expected to become a 5 to 10 billion industry this year, with 17% of marketers claiming to spend half their marketing spend, the marketing budget, on influencer marketing. Yet, looking at the ad spend, in light of the coronavirus pandemic, according to the IAB, in the near term, digital ad spend is down 33% and traditional media is down 39%. Campaign revealed an astonishing 50% reduction in ad spend in April, and we're looking at potentially 75% reduction in May. While these numbers are critical and feel quite alarming, the news from Goldman Sachs is reassuring. Liking the crash from COVID-19 more akin to 2008 rather than the 1930s, where we're going into the crash quite heavily but steer out quite quickly. Here I feel is where brands need to be more acutely aware of the need to retain a voice in market at this critical time. Brands such as Kellogg's in the US and M&S in the UK advertised during World War I. They adapted their business and spent on advertising and came out stronger on the other side. M&S famously said, but companies who adapted survived. We reinvented ourselves and responded to people's needs. We started to sell more of life's essentials, including underwear, which galvanized our business for the years to come after that. We are seeing incredible work from brands who are adapting their business model and use of their technologies. LVMH immediately pivoted to make hand sanitizer in their factories, along with a number of major brands such as Pernod Ricard and Brewdog. And McLaren, on the one hand, is shutting down their Formula One. They're scaling their engineers' talents to produce ventilators along with companies such as Unilever, Rolls-Royce, and many more who make up what's called the consortium Project Oyster. Dyson and G-Tech have also responded to the government's needs and are working on ventilator hardware, leveraging their experience building vacuums and other motor-driven airflow gadgets to produce new ventilators. A quick shift in business model. We've also seen fashion designers such as Christian Serrano is making face masks as his team has sewing machines at their homes. Whereas we're seeing companies like Airbnb, not surprisingly, halt all marketing activity in an 800 million savings plan. We'll watch to see what happens with them. We are also seeing altruistic work from companies like May.com, who are dedicating their time to calling NHS hospitals and offering beds, accessories, literally asking what do they have in their stores that they can help with, which has been received really well. Likewise, Premier Inn has offered up their beds to NHS workers, which warms their hearts. Here we're seeing real brands retain a voice in the market by employing a marketing strategy with social purpose and adapting business models to new production lines. There is also a huge opportunity for influencers and talent. We're seeing a number of teachers, for example, pivot to being influencers themselves. Mental health is an acute concern and celebrities and brands are pulling together to support the nation. Influencer Victoria Eames shared her entertainment gold, I Will Survive. And I urge you, if you haven't seen it, Google it after this morning's webinar. She released I Will Survive last week, where she changed the words and drew on every feeling, emotion, reaction we've all felt, and it entertained us and brought joy when we really needed it. That joy is reassuring to how resilient us human beings are. Joe Wicks is stable in most households at 9 a.m. for the PE session. Jamie Oliver's cooking at noon. Carol Vorderman is teaching maths, if you can get onto her oversubscribed sites. We've not managed it yet, but queue hopefully, just like we do for an online shop. We'll hear from our guests on the work they're doing with influencers and talent at this time when we're all at home and looking to the outside world for purpose and joy. So without further ado, I'm delighted to share today's agenda with you and our speakers. So bear with me while I move around with the technology. I'm going to share my screen. Just make sure I've got it lined up nicely. Here we are. Okay. So, just after the agenda, I'll be very delighted to hand over to Scott Guthrie, and he's going to take us through the asset test for purpose-driven influence marketing. Then after that, we're coming on to Maya Bogle from Talenthouse, and where she's talking about creating beautiful content and bringing joy into the home. How they're working to keep the lights on for their 1 million content creators. Then we'll have a short break at 9:40, and then we're going to go straight into a fireside with influencer, and we're going to talk about how brands are building meaningful relationships with their consumers, with Ben Jeffries, one of the founders, and Jane Lauren, the COO. Followed by that, we're going into talk to Kate Oliver, the founder of Executive House, who deals with real talent, celebrities of this world, like Stormzy and so forth. And she's going to talk to us about the role of talent and influencers to deliver both social purpose and joy into the home at this crucial time. Then I'm very happy to move on to Mary Keane Dawson as well from Takumi, and she's Group CEO, and she's going to take us through the importance of influencer marketing and how it will directly impact and help the public fight the COVID-19 epidemic. And then I'm very happy to introduce the Moment Company, and we'll be speaking to their CEO, Fiona McKinnon, about the role of influencers and celebrities and mental health. So now, bear with me while I do a little bit of magic here with the screens, and I am very happy to introduce Scott. Scott has just dropped off the call. He was on there earlier this morning, so I'm quite sure he's going to be back in 1 second. So I'm going to do some magic contacting right now. This is my first webinar, so I think I'm moving around quite well. Here we go. Call Scott in. I'm really looking forward to his talk this morning. I've just realised I'm 1 minute early. It's my chat. So Scott will be on in 1 second, and then I'm just going to be some good Q&As, but I would like everybody, if you have any questions, do send them to me on my WhatsApp. And also, and I think there's a way here through Zoom where you can do a Q&A, so that would be great. But actually, if Scott doesn't come up, Maya, I'll bring you on for our Q&A.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Maya. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. And what a great introduction, Maria. And I hope everyone else out there is keeping safe and well. Tough times for us all. And I think this lockdown is here to stay for a little bit longer, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're in for a long haul. So this new way of working, I think it's getting comfortable with. It's quite important. So Maya, like, how are you working to keep the lights on for your 1 million content creators?
Really good question. So for those of you out there who don't know a little bit about our company, we're TLNT Holdings, and we've got 3 platforms underneath that: talenthouse.com, Zupa.com and lo.co. And we have got across those communities around about 4 million members, of which 1 million are creators. So when we talk about creators, we're talking about people who actually create creative content. So there could be photographers, filmmakers, designers, fashion designers, illustrators, anyone who's actually making content. And this kind of disaggregated community is in 200 markets, and they rely very heavily as freelancers on a pipeline of briefs of work that they can actually work to and respond to actually earn income for. These last few weeks, as you can imagine, have completely changed our business. We've had a number of big campaigns, Maria, being bumped out, cancelled, pushed, postponed, particularly campaigns when there was any form of physical activation or event. Because clearly you can't be sending people out to the opening of a Marriott hotel or to the store opening of an Adidas store. We were doing a collaboration with UEFA's around one of their big sponsoring brands. Clearly all the sporting activities are being pushed back, so there ain't nothing going on in that world at all. So what we've learned over the last 12 years is that whilst creators really want to make money, obviously, what they're also very motivated by is inspiration, connectivity, opportunity, access, learning, the sort of things which creators do day in and day out. I mean, creators have got that in their DNA. They're looking for opportunity, but they're also looking to be inspired. They want to show and tell. And so what we've tried to do is not to have what we would call a gig economy, which is just when people come in for a gig and then take off if they get the gig or if they don't get the gig. We've actually tried to create an environment, a community. And for us now, that community is serving its purpose more than ever before. That community is working really hard to connect with each other, to talk to each other, to show their work. So
they're all supporting themselves, each other as well, they're pulling together. Exactly.
So I think if you've got a community, you've got lots of interactions going on within it. It's not just like you're a job posting board, because obviously you're just posting jobs and there ain't too many jobs up there. You don't have a business model. So we felt it was very important from day one, really, to build a community. So one of the ways that we're keeping the lights on is to ensure that that community interaction can go on, that there's always beautiful, inspirational work on the site, and also working around some social purpose projects, which we can touch on in a moment. And also we have to shift our business approach to our brands to make sure that our brands are still coming on too.
Yeah, well, that's actually a really good point. Like, is there a need for you? Is there a need to pivot or adapt your business? Are you finding that and how you work?
Very much so. So we've had to shift away from any experiential type event marketing activations, which a lot of our projects were around. We work with all the Hollywood studios, from Paramount to Disney to Warner's to Universal and MGM, etc. And for instance, we worked on the Bond movie and produced around about 4,000 beautiful creative assets for the studios to use around the release of the film. That's been pushed back. So a lot of those things have changed. So anything in that space has moved away. So we're having to pivot our business in terms of talking to our brand partners about the sort of things you mentioned as well, Maria. You need to keep a presence during times of economic recession or troubled times. Those brands which literally disappear from marketing altogether, they have to recapture that ground when they move back in again. So it's far better to keep an always-on presence with some sort of sensible, sensitive, in tone, in tune creative content strategy.
That's actually really powerful. I think that's the message that a lot of people feel that brands, they want to hear for a number of reasons. You know, we need to see the economy keep spinning. We need brands to, for their sake and for ours, I guess, because you look at the marketing teams, if they pull back the spend, that means they're pulling budgets from there, and that's a huge concern for their livelihood. And then, of course, to your point, you're 1 million content creators. But then I guess if you've got a movie, you can't do that. Is there anything else they can do, or is it just that,
exactly.
that waiting?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Maria. I think what people don't want to see brands doing is go out and test drive a BMW or an Audi or anything else, because you can't. You don't want to see brands pushing people just to go out and buy, and sort of not appreciating the complete fear that's going on. I mean, I think we should call it physical distancing, not social distancing. I think actually we need to be more socially connected.
It's amazing.
Than ever before.
Yes.
amazes me that the WHO, and I can talk about the UN in a moment because we've just launched an amazing project with the United Nations, but I think that this need for social connectivity has never been greater. There are a lot of people living in very physically isolated situations, fearful, fear of death, fear of loss of income, fear of home, fear of loss of friendships, fear of, mental stimulation, fear of social connectivity. Right now, there's a huge amount that brands could be doing, I think, to step into that space of, we view this as almost a recalibration of humanity. Some good things could really come out of this lockdown. Think about what we could be doing around connecting with people, spending more time with our families, although I think divorces might go up too. I'm not sure, but there's all kinds of people talking about that as well. So I think there are positive things that can come out of this. Brands should be looking at the learning that you could do in this kind of this time of enforced entrapment at home. Use that time positively. I mean, the keep fit you can do at home is incredible. You don't need to be a member of an expensive gym. You can do really good workouts at home. You can do everything from house party to Zoom meetings to WhatsApp video chats. There's great ways of connecting with your family. So as a brand, I talk about learning around social connectivity. I'd also think that brands should be doing something around pushing out sensitive content about that humanity piece, and also really maybe reinforcing their charitable activation too. It's a good time for brands to be seen to be doing good. If you're a brand and you've got your corporate social responsibility budgets, activate those now.
That's brilliant. That's I think really powerful point about there. Can I ask you, are you seeing? You've talked us through about how businesses are adapting. What work are you doing around social purpose?
So we've always believed that social purpose is very much in our DNA. In our DNA is creative collaboration. And we believe that creators are your great natural influences in the world. Creators tend to shape the way we feel about everything. They can dictate where we want to live, what we wear, what we watch, what we listen to, what we eat. We know what's in, what's not in, etc. So you've got this incredibly powerful community of creators who can shape the way that people feel about things. They also, I think, can really help generate creative work to support the United Nations goals, whatever those goals may be, around climate change, Black rights, women's rights, inclusivity around the LGBTQ plus community.
Well done.
I should have got some water. So I think that there's a huge amount this community can do in that social purpose piece. And in the past, we've worked with people like Cara Delevingne to support her New Hope Animal Sanctuary. We've worked with Michael Kinakanuka to support Charity Water. We've worked with Universal Music Groups to actually support Art Against Knives. And at the moment, we've just launched an incredible global call out from the United Nations. So the United Nations, and I've been directly on the phone to them, it's very sobering, actually, quite worrying. They're really, really concerned about how long this is going to run for. They need to get key messaging from the World Health Organization out to everyone, everywhere. They need to know that people are actually taking the steps required to know how to stop the spread of coronavirus. And
are you looking for help and support with that? Is there anything the community we have here can do?
What the UN have done is they've asked if we could be the official platform hosting all of the creative content that they want through their global call out to actually inspire creators in every corner of the world to produce creative work around one of their 6 core messages that they're trying to communicate to the world. Excuse me. So it's a really, really important brief. This, for me, is a time when the whole industry should lean in. This without agenda, without ownership issues, without conflict of interest in terms of competitive platforms or communities or goals or aspirations. This is a call out for humanity. And I know that's quite a heavy topic to be talking about at 9:20 on a Wednesday morning, on the 1st of April. And this isn't April Fool's Day either, guys.
No,
this is super serious. There is a real requirement from us collectively within our industry to lean in, help produce the United Nations creative content that they want. So we launched with them yesterday. We've already had, and I can have a quick look, I think over 1,000 pieces of creative work that have come in from all over the world, from people who just want to support this. And we only launched just over 30 hours ago. So we expect to get possibly, certainly thousands, possibly tens of thousands of pieces of creative work. They're then going to sit in a publicly available portal for everyone to use. Health authorities, educational establishments, governments, media owners, media partners, brands, and the public at large to flush and flood creative content through their newsfeed, through their marketing channels to get this important messaging out.
That's incredible work. Well done.
Thank
and
you.
then, like, from, I guess we can do an ask for everybody here. Once you have that creative, we can all access it and we should all share it. Is there any key points that you find? There's 6 points you said. Is there any of the key ones that, is there anything we haven't heard, like wash your hands?
A lot of, what's really lovely is they want to build in this lovely kind of humanistic piece to it too. So people, clearly the messaging from the WHO is very much about the health and the hygiene, the physical distancing, etc. But they also want to build in some beautiful humanity pieces around it too, which is around solidarity for the world. And actually, if you think about it, this is the first time the entire world is fighting one common and sadly invisible enemy. And it is the first time that all the world, regardless of your, your ethnic origin, your color, your creed, your sexual orientation, your faith, your location, it doesn't matter. And this is affecting everyone. The UN are terrified about the impact it's going to have on countries like South America, where you've got overcrowding, 6 people in a home, no access to running water, no access to soap or antibacterial hand wash. Think about the impact on Africa too. We're just seeing what it's doing to Northern Europe and to China. But when it starts getting into those other territories, this is going to be unbelievably difficult to control. So anything we can do now to get some of that messaging out is really important.
Maya, that's really, really quite, like, it's emotional, but it's powerful. And I think well done in the work you're doing.
I've cried a few tears over the last week or so, but the content that's coming in is beautiful. I can share, the link, it's just on talenthouse.com. You won't be able to see the work yet until we move it from today, and we're going to be filtering through that. All the work will be United Nations approved and will sit in a separate gallery for everyone to access. So please do look at it, use it. It's free to download.
Great. Well, I'll get the link off you when I contact. I would say thank you to everybody. I'll just make sure we all see that. And I just want to say, to your point that you've said all along, this time it's a pandemic, it's critical, it's all of these things, but we're at home and we're looking to be real about it, and we're looking to do our best, and we are looking for something beautiful to warm us. And I think the fact that you've got warming messages like solidarity in there, it's beautiful. And I know making iconic creative at this time it's the wartime iconic creative. So I think that's really interesting and important. So well done.
It's really true. If you think about the old Kitchener poster, "Your country needs you," and Rosie the Riveter, sort of getting women out there to start working in the forces, etc. It's a real opportunity to use creative content, the power of creative content, the power of the people that make it. Creative as influencers is a real sweet spot, real proper, authentic, artistic influence. Let's use that opportunity to flush the world with positive messaging, which is going to save the world too.
Well, I love it. Thank you. And I think that's the whole point. We're going to move on to Scott now. We're going to talk about really the acid test of purpose and the role of influencers and who can execute these messages the best, whether it's, bringing those messages out or the entertainment, whichever side. But thank you, Maya. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Scott.
Hello there.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to you. I'm looking forward
in the words of Stephen Toast about London. Can you hear me, Stephen? Can you hear me loud and clear?
We can hear you.
Good. All right.
I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to leave you. You can share your screen and I'll stop recording.
Perfect.
I'll be listening. Thanks.
Hi there, Maria and Maya. Thank you very much for jumping in. I don't know if it was user error or it's probably user error. I'd like to blame it on technology though. So thank you very much for jumping in with no warning and taking over my slot. So I just want to speak. Let's see, right. I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes or so just talking about the acid test now for purpose-led influencer marketing. I think, you know, that it's easy to eulogize about the importance of putting purpose ahead of profit when you're living your best life during the good times. It's another thing altogether to stick to those ideals when the future of the economy is so uncertain. And so, you know, a lot of what I want to talk about in the next few minutes is really just echoing what Maya has said about the importance of community and the importance of brand equity, really. It's about the importance of keeping purpose at the heart of our influencer marketing. Yes, from a moral perspective, but also from a commercial imperative as well. So no doubt later, Ben and Mary and Jane will explain about the work that their companies are doing with creators and the World Health Organization to build awareness around social distancing. Although, as Maya points out, it's about physical distancing, not social distancing. That's a great distinction, I think. And but I'm sure that Mary, Jane, and Ben will be talking about the work they're doing with WHO, and Maya as well, who's just signed up with the United Nations. But of course, they're not the only organisations that are working with influencers to share positive stories and to share important messaging around what the community can do to help themselves in this pandemic time. So no doubt everybody's seen Joe Wicks. He's now become, I'm a parent of two, he's become a fabric of our family life now with his morning get fit routine workouts. But also, you know, there are many other influencers, other creators. Dr. Ranj Singh here, former children's BBC presenter, former Strictly Come Dancing contestant, a London hospital doctor, and he regularly talks to his community on Instagram and on Twitter about the pandemic, about the health situation, and he's a good translator. He can translate some of the concerns and the technical jargon into easily consumed bite-sized chunks that his audience will understand. Mr. Beast there, up top left, he's got 23.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's just in the last couple of days done $1 million $1 million food donation to US food banks. So, and again, you know, there are lots of other influencers. There's Dr. Mike, the American doctor, sort of a contemporary to Dr. Ranj, who does the same sort of thing as Dr. Ranj is doing, but from a US point of view. So he's also an explainer. He's sharing in sort of everyday language what people should know about the pandemic and how they can protect themselves and their loved ones and community at large. But he's also taking some positive direct action. And he personally went and bought $25,000 worth of face masks and distributed those to US hospitals. And so so you know, as and again, as was Maya has pointed out, because I could hear but I couldn't interact a bit earlier. As consumers in this time of crisis, we're turning more than ever to our favorite creators on social media, and we're turning to those influencers who add value to our lives, and they produce content that is interesting, or it's informative, or it's entertaining, or it's a combination of both. But of all of these examples I've shown, you know, they're putting their community at the heart of what they're doing. They're putting, you know, it's very community centric. And again, you know, it's not just creators that are doing that. You know, now is a time for action. You know, deeds, not words. And we're seeing that as individual influencers are placing community and their values at the heart of their content, so are we seeing some big brands doing the same. And you know, Burberry announced a couple of days ago that it's now making medical face masks and gowns. Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy is making hand sanitizer. Marriott International, the CEO of Marriott, he said that he won't, he won't be taking a salary throughout the whole of 2020, and he's halved his executive team's remuneration. And by doing this, he's showing the company's embeddedness with the employees and the societies in which they operate. So it's time, it's a time for community, and it's a time for actions, not just saying all the wonderful things we're going to do. It's a time for actually doing those things.
I really want it to look like this.
And so now I've drawn this small sort of graphic here. You can see that the top line there's the time, and then going down the side it's the impact. And at the moment we're in this crisis bit, and we don't know yet either the global impact or the duration of this pandemic. We're hoping very much, you can see in the middle of your screen, we're hoping that it's going to be a V-shaped initial shock, then a quick correction, but we don't know. And it could be a U-shape impact and time, or the worst case scenario, it could be sort of this bathtub where we go in, and sadly it might sort of nudge into a depression. And there's many organizations are soon or at this time, they're sort of fighting for their survival. Many are many are in crisis mode, and sales and marketing budgets are often, I think, the first sacrifice to be made up. And our companies are looking, so some of them have just shut down, put the shutters down on sales and marketing budgets. Others are reversing, taking away from the purpose marketing, and they're moving purely onto sales-based activations in a bid for organizational survival. Yet more companies will want to continue with their sales and marketing drive, and there's a commercial imperative to keeping these wheels of business turning. And there'll also be, but at the same time, these brands are concerned not to appear tin-eared or insensitive or opportunistic. And I think this is a good time for really to consider influencer marketing. I'm not trying to say we should benefit from this pandemic, this terrible crisis, but influencer marketing offers help here. Influencers are adept at creating compelling content which sparks conversation, strengthens connections, nurtures community, and converts into action. They know what their community likes, and they know what their community doesn't care for. And these influencers they're the community guardians, and they'll be able to tell a brand immediately whether the messaging chimes with their audience or it fails the smell test. So all of these examples of activation we've seen, it's about community first. But that's not to say that we can't be thinking about the commerciality, about continuing with activations. And as Maya said earlier, it's about the quality of the storytelling, and but both in production, but also the meaning behind that. And we'll come on to a little bit about the importance of keeping the sort of the brand equity lights on throughout this uncertain times. I think this is no PowerPoint should be bereft of a slide with some stats on. And here, here is a survey on the top one. 73% say that the way companies act during this crisis will affect future purchase decisions. This was a GfK poll just in the last 10 days, so very recent, 73%. A poll from last year says that 76% expect brands to contribute to their way of life and well-being. And that was from a survey conducted last year in 2019 by Havas. And here 93% say that Gen Z say that if a company makes a commitment, it should stand by its commitment. So again, it's about deeds, not just words. And when, lots of brands are very good at having mission statements and value statements on their website. Now is the time to live up to those. And influencers are a way of humanizing the brands and translating that brand vision, that brand purpose into a story that consumers and society at large can understand. Here, Former Australian Prime Minister John Howard once said, "You can't fatten a pig on market day," and it's it's a great line, and it's something that it's a line that stuck with me for a long while. And this really kind of this echoes Maya's point earlier, that we need to keep the lights on in terms of brand equity. We need to keep on brands need to be front of mind and reminding customers and society about the values that their brands instill. And that's why we've seen Marriott doing these things, and Louis Vuitton putting actions first, and Zara. They're whether it's Uber Eats, there's so many. They're actually not just saying what we're going to do, they're actually doing what they're going to do. They're walking the talk, if you like. But in terms of John Howard's line, you can't fatten a pig on market day, the implication for brands is that they need to stay relevant, they need to stay top of mind. It's understandable that in this uncertain times that brands want to cut budgets or remove budgets, or divert budgets into pure sales activations. But purpose helps establish and reinforce a real meaningful connection between a brand and a consumer. And influencer marketing helps reinforce this bond, because people buy people stories. They don't really buy brand stories, they buy people stories. Mark Ritson, PhD in marketing, has been writing for Marketing Week for 2 decades now. He's been doing some research into past recessions and past depressions, and the data shows that brands that maintain an investment in their own brands and their brand equity, in the values and the purpose behind them, what they stand for, that they can help customers and society at large. And when we come out of this uncertainty, when we come out of this financial uncertainty, as well as health uncertainty, the data shows that there's a 30 to 40% incremental growth in the first couple of years post-recession for these companies that have kept the lights on. I wanted to kind of close on the mainstream media as well. So we've talked about influencers putting community at the heart of everything they do. We've talked about brands acting and not just saying. But there is a positivity towards influencer marketing, and here the top article, "Have we reached peak influencer?" was written in the Financial Times and it was published on the 31st of December. And it's quite a damning piece that really is saying that influencer marketing is a fad. Fast forward 1 quarter to last week, and there's another story, again by the same journalist, Hannah Murphy, and it's a very different story about influencer marketing and how it's a bit of a naff headline, but how influencers are rallying around good causes, and they're sort of mobilizing their community, and they're offering good advice, but also entertainment and a distraction as well. So maybe there is a kind of a shift towards a bit of a positivity in terms of influencer marketing, at least from the mainstream media. That is me. I've tried to keep it down to 10, 11 minutes, but Maria, do you have any questions or anything?
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. I think you touched on some fantastic points here, and actually the community coming together, I think we're going to come back to that time and time again as we all pull together. And great stats now. When we look at the recession, we see those 3 visuals you've given us, and I'm quite sure there's not a single person that's hoping and praying for the V, or at worst a U. So let's just hold that thought together. And actually I have one question that's come in from Philip Brown, and you've already touched on quite a bit of it. It's thoughts on Endelman's Trust Barometer update released yesterday, saying 65% of consumers have noted that how a brand responds to the crisis will have a huge impact on their likelihood to purchase that brand in the future, which you've covered. But he moves on to say, and how does this align with a decrease in advertising spend? Which This is the big
You
question I think we're all asking
you
ourselves.
cut off right at the question, but how does that relate to the, say that again, Maria?
So how does this align with a decrease in advertising spend? Which is the question we're all asking ourselves. Have we
Well,
brands
yes, and,
realise this?
and it's a difficult, and again, when I said, about, lots of brands, want to carry, keep the wheels of commerce moving, but they don't want to make a misstep. I was quite conscious in this, in this 10-minute slot, not to do the same. I think I didn't see the Edelman thing from yesterday, but I have seen that they did a snap about 2 weeks ago, a smaller sample than they usually do with their trust barometer, and they were saying that influencers and subject matter experts, are resonating. I think it is going to be a reality that marketing and advertising budgets decrease or wither. There's an opportunity for influencer marketing, though, to get a bigger slice, I think, of that diminished budget.
I think you're right.
And I think because there are a few reasons. I think because influencers are adept at humanizing a brand. They're adept. We don't buy. It's such a hackneyed thing, but we don't buy from brands. We buy from people. We buy stories, and it's people that we can relate to. So so I think if the overall cake is getting smaller, our slice of the cake and influencer marketing hopefully will get larger. Also, we're a nimble industry. We're able to, it's still small enough to be able to test and learn, to try out, to see what works, what doesn't work, to recalibrate so that we're eliminating the waste and just concentrating on what works, and nudging our KPIs, incrementally. And we can do that at a both faster at a lower price point than some of the other traditional advertising mediums.
I think spot on. I think space is going to become more meaningful and hence the bigger size. Scott, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time. And then we're going to take a short break. So I'll kick off at exactly 9:50 with Influencer, and we have Ben Jeffries and Jane Lauren. So I look forward to seeing you there and enjoy a coffee. Cheers.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Cheers.
A fireside chat with Ben and I. I think it's the first time we've done a fireside chat the other side of London from each other and not near a fire. But anyway, very interesting so far. And yes, I suppose I'm going to probably repeat some of the messages from Maya and Scott. A few weeks ago, obviously, we had a lot of our clients and brands get in touch with us, and of course our creators, as pretty much things seemed to grind to a bit of a halt overnight. What happened after that was a bit of a time of reflection where we were dealing a lot and working, obviously, influencer platform,
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. I think I'm 1 minute ahead of schedule, so I'll give everybody that 30 seconds to get themselves back together. But thank you for joining me this morning. Hope you've enjoyed so far.
Very much so.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Absolutely delighted. So I think it'd be good to kick off with the actual agenda question for you guys, because I think it's such an important topic right now. And yeah, really keen to hear your view on it. So Ben, if I kick off with you, how do you see brands building meaningful relationships with consumers, especially at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now it's certainly a very, very interesting period, and I think right now there's a lot of obviously negativity within the news, just understandably about what's going on with the situation. So I think right now people are sort of like welcoming distractions. They're welcoming messages which can add that bit of positivity, and they can add that bit of message which will raise morale as such. And I think that's where creators are perfectly placed to be able to do that essentially. Though with that in mind, for those who haven't read the BBH COVID-19 and marketing report, I would actively encourage you to. I posted it on my LinkedIn a few days ago, but essentially what it's trying to say is, with that in mind, brands trying to raise morale, be very careful about how you do it. And I think the biggest message here is don't be opportunist, and also be real, and be kind and be calm. And with that in mind as well, I think people right now will remember how brands are portraying themselves to consumers. I've seen a couple of fashion brands try and be a little bit cheeky, I would say, and try and do messages where they're promoting perhaps like custom like face masks and things like that, and it doesn't necessarily portray a great image. But I've seen brands who've spread some really positive messages, and consumers will remember that. And that's, I think, why, as I mentioned earlier, that they're steering towards the creators to help do that, because the creators have these engaged communities, and the creators can help spread that positivity.
That's really powerful, and I think it's really nice of you to recap, actually, to remind everybody the rules of engagement, they're real right now, and getting the tone of voice right is it's a deal breaker, isn't it? I mean, it means the brand resonates or not, and I think we're going to see that with influencers, with how with influencers that do well in the space.
100%. And what we're also seeing as well, which is quite interesting, is how brands are also looking after creators within the community as well. So I think obviously creators right now, it's no hidden secret that advertisers are pausing spends, they're delaying spends. So what we are seeing though is some brands coming out to support creators, whereby perhaps it's not their traditional message about with pushing, perhaps like some travel brands, but they're helping to support those creators who they'd be previously working with on trips and whatnot, but to portray other messages, which I think is fantastic to see within the industry.
That's actually really heartwarming, and that's the purpose as well, and it doesn't need to be something we necessarily see, but that's where the community element comes into play, doesn't it, between the brand and the content creator, which is really brilliant. So are you seeing, actually, I guess brings me on to my next question, are you seeing a change in narrative from your content creators?
Yeah, so I think the three biggest shifts we're sort of seeing at the moment is, for sure, there are some advertisers who are still keen on going live, often with content which is being created before obviously everything hit. And what we're tending to encourage is that the creators just add a little bit of a disclaimer to say that this content was created before, not to promote any sort of negative behavior or to encourage any negative sentiment around what the content actually portrays at the moment. So we are seeing disclaimers added. What we're also seeing as well is a big shift in branded content from our creators. So with production shoots up and down the country being cancelled, what we're seeing is brands needing content assets now more than ever, and who better than your content creators. So we're seeing creators not necessarily just get commissioned to post on their own channels, but to produce assets which advertisers can use for paid social, to be put through their premium publishers as well. So we're seeing a huge rise in demand in that. And then lastly, just in terms of what the creators are actually saying when they are still posting, obviously there are some advertisers who we work with, like, we work with ride hailing apps, and unfortunately those ones, it has to be a little bit parked to their advertising. But there are other ones where there are fashion brands who have been quite innovative, and whether that be a campaign around showing what's in their wardrobe at home, for example, the creators, and that's getting really positive sentiments. That's something which we're tracking at the moment very heavily, is the sentiment around campaigns and seeing how consumers are actively responding. And we are seeing consumers being very positive to creators who are being sensitive with their posts, and they are very almost proud of their creators still being managed to work with the brands during this difficult time.
That's really powerful. I think that's just really, I think getting the whole message there is amazing. And of course, this is where you see real winners and losers. We talk about it's quite concerning for anybody who's out in the field when it comes to production, but a huge opportunity when the producers do that from their own homes, such as the influencers, which is amazing. Jane, can I put a question your way, actually, thinking about that? Brands called their marketing spend into question a couple of weeks ago. Has this remained the case? Are you seeing that brands are spending again? What's the temperature of spend that you're seeing?
I think, the temperature seems to be changing all the time, but...
like the weather.
Yeah, pretty much. Snow and then sunshine this week alone. So yeah, obviously a couple of weeks ago, we had a lot of clients and brands discussing with us the options of what should we do. There was a lot of consternation and a lot of immediate halting of activity. However, what I think that gave brands and clients a time to do is for reflection and to also work with us and really understand how do we actually help consumers during this very concerning time. So I think what we see now is a lot of reactivation, but with different messaging, really sort of getting our advice on how we can tap into, as Scott said, the people that we work with, our creators, they really have got this great active audience. So how do we utilize that even more so during a very stressful time? And of course, some activations will be delayed, and working with those brands to make sure that when we can reactivate, we can do that in a really efficient way. Also, interestingly for us, I suppose we've seen a lot of new types of brand and activity where potentially we wouldn't normally have seen some of that activity now. So where brands can really support and help the consumer, whether it be wellness at home. Obviously, we talked earlier about the boom in online fitness and well-being, but also how you help parents during this time. I'm not a parent, but I've got lots of friends who are looking after children at home, dealing with the school holidays that are about to happen. How do you, engage children, helping them still with their education? So a lot of new activations as well, but also just a constant dialogue. As we said, the temperature is changing all the time.
Yes.
How do we deal with the new normal for now? And how do brands have an always on activation to really engage? Is a great opportunity, as Ben said and Scott referred to really engage with your brand and really get great brand loyalty through a very, very tricky time.
That's really powerful. And then you've touched on the categories. And so one of the questions I was thinking, is there a trend in the spend category? But is it really around the wellness and the parenting, or are you seeing other? No,
I don't think there's a trend. There's obviously, people have big anxieties right now around wellness, finance, family, entertainment at home. So I don't think there's a trend in sector, there's a trend in messaging, and there's a trend in how you engage with your consumers during a complete shift in consumer habits and also a shift in consumer mindset. So I don't think it's a sector trend, it's more of a messaging trend, and how you can really, do stuff for good and really do it for good. Make sure that your messaging is really, really helping consumers through a bad time.
That's really powerful when you think about, we're talking about social purpose here, and we're talking about brands spending through this, and some brands knowing what to do and other brands maybe not. But I guess with you advising them, and actually for brand to think differently, don't think about your sector, think about the messaging that people need, and how do you bring that message with your brand, which is really brand values. And I guess finding influencers who can, who can create that content or tell that narrative. So that's really a powerful way of looking at it.
Exactly, and as Ben said, a lot of brands wanting to still work with creators, and so our whole ethos is about building meaningful relationships between brands and creators, and this gives us an opportunity to do this in a way that can be really, really helpful for everybody in that sort of ecosystem.
Really good. And do you find then you have to pull in, is that a new team, or is just really your team are already really well versed in it? Because that's a real hand holding for the client, or helping them shift in their thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been something in our structure that we've done all along, and Ben will refer to how we do that as a team.
Yeah, and actually, Ben, I'll actually jump to you with this question, because that kind of my segue is kind of, are you seeing many brands pivot their business?
Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess, add on to a little bit of what Jane just said about the strategy element. I think something which we've always been really proud of at Influencer is, for sure, we have all that, intelligent global data from our platform, and, we invest very heavily within our insights. So we recently hired the ex-director of data science from Kantar as our head of insights to help really, be relevant and understand what's currently going on within the market.
Amazing.
But that has to be kind of, have a layer of human creativity on the top. So our strategy team is something which we've been investing in heavily as well over the last sort of 6 months. And, with that, strategy piece comes, okay, well, how can we adjust to these current situations and use the data to all back it up? I mean, we have clients like Pernod Ricard's a big account for us. And Pernod Ricard right now have stopped production of, for example, their Absolute vodka, because what they've done is they've changed that production line to actually make hand sanitizer, which is fantastic. So, it's been adding value to a situation, but of course that means that they're no longer interested in advertising Absolute vodka, but, it's brands adapting, and as long as they're adding value to consumers, then, as I sort of mentioned earlier, consumers will remember it's about showing your true colors right now, especially, in these times. So I think that's what consumers will definitely remember. But I guess as well, just to answer further your question on creativity, we are, being very mindful and being very sensitive to brands on the strategy piece, and we are helping them ensure that they are, as I mentioned earlier, be real, add clarity, and not being opportunist.
Yeah, I think that's really, really powerful. And actually, think of like Pernod Ricard, and they're not, so the influencers would have been doing some amazing content around Absolute vodka, but I guess it's not quite the same, or hand sanitizer. And that just makes me think, like, Ben, the question to you is, how are the influencers helping as a business? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we're sort of getting involved in 3 different ways at the moment. So of course, Scott brought it up earlier. We're working with the World Health Organization as their influencer platform to help amplify the message. I know plenty of other influencer platforms are also getting involved, I think,
that's good.
Well, which is great to see. And it's about really, during these times, setting aside those differences and just all coming together to sort of amplify the message as far as possible. So that's something which we're working on. There's an article on it in the Drum. But we're also getting involved in 2 other ways. So tomorrow morning, actually, at 8:30 a.m, we've got a workout on our Instagram. So we've got one of our creators doing a little workout to help just kind of, set the vibe for the morning, try and help with like mental health. So for anyone who wants to join in, it's just go to our Instagram. It's just the word influencer, and that's 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. And also attached to that as well, my co-founder, Casper, he's working with the NHS charities together on a massive campaign right now, trying to unify creators all around the world to help amplify more messages, just to help support and raise awareness and raise charity donations for the NHS.
That's really, really powerful, I have to say. And it's really, it's really, really wonderful to hear when big businesses like you talk about the Who campaign, and talk about competitors, not as competitors, but actually as a community as well. So that's a real pulling together, which is amazing. And then you as a business working with charities. So I think it's an amazing, interesting time of watching how people change their behaviour. And again, we'll keep looking at this space, and I'm going to look at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Attempt to do some exercise. But thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. And I'll put this out to anybody questions. I can bring them through at the very end as well, because I'm going to line up Kate, who will be coming on next. Very much appreciate you coming on this morning, guys. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And I'll let you know if you've got any more questions at the end.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Organising, Maria.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Kate. Thank you very much for joining us. And we're looking forward to hearing your chat today, because you've got sparkly chat. And the world of talent is, you know, we talk about influencers a lot, and you know, I see influencers and talent is slightly different, and they've got, there's a similarity in roles, but often different responsibilities with their roles. And I guess, you know, we've chatted a bit about what you're going to talk about, and I think you taking through your view on the responsibilities of purpose and joy with talent is really what I'm really looking forward to. So I'm going to hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. So I really see the role of everyone at the moment being the same. I don't really, if you're an artist who usually sells out like Wembley Stadium, to a social media influencer, a parent, a teacher, whoever you might be at this time, I think what's been touched on earlier and the theme that keeps coming through, it's about really coming together. It's about being honest and really taking a great look at yourself, to ask what your core values are, what you really care about, and what's going to get you, your family and your friends through this current situation. I think it was Ben earlier said it's about leaving the egos at the door, and how we can send messages, if you're, be that you're a talent or influencer, to help now, not selling a product for after quarantine, but what can inform, what can connect, what can entertain, and most of all in this moment that we're all going through, what can help. So I predominantly work in a music and entertainment field, where I build partnerships, I put people and brands together, and I've always tried to do it with a way into actually kind of solve social problems. And prior to being in quarantine and the coronavirus, I've been pioneering a global event which ended for 79,000 people at London Stadium to support youth and knife crime, which, you know, that won't have gone away when we're out, but, you know, at the moment, God knows if that's going to happen. But there was one message that I had with that, and it still seems really true to what we're doing now, and that is, there is no social purpose that we can't solve together. And I just feel that's incredibly relevant. You know, music, sport and tech, that connects people, and we have an amazing opportunity now in an incredibly challenging time to kind of work out how we can do this in a less materialistic, more creative way, and learn as brands, as influencers, as talent, what we really want from life. You know, I've learned in a short space of time not to worry about certain things, you know, maybe who I thought some friends were who weren't. I've learned that I can put a laundry basket over my head and still drink wine through a straw to hide from the family. And these are the kind of things I want to see. And talent, influencers, have fun, bring laughter into the house, and have a simple return to simple common values that we all share. And I want talent and influencers to tell me that it's okay, that I'm not alone, that we'll get through this together. I kind of feel that I trained as an actress originally, and I kind of took this Stanislavski way of working, which is kind of the who, what and why, meaning who are you, what are you trying to achieve, and why are you doing it? And now that feels even more relevant, you know, because we have an obvious narrative as a global community, which is inspiring imaginations. It's bringing people together. It's creating new, amazing influences, and those who are speaking the truth and having fun. You know, those one of my favourites that's been is a lady that was having a massive rant. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I think she was speaking Israeli, but she's like, how am I meant to homeschool? I can't pull a clarinet. And I said, now they finally know how dumb we are. That connects, and that makes me think, oh, okay, it's all right, I'm fine. And that's what we want to see. I loved the clip that I saw of, and reminded me of a song that I haven't heard in ages, A Horse with No Name. And it was this couple just being incredibly creative. Like, she'd flipped her hair over her head, he'd been the horse, and they're pretending they were a horse. It's amazing. And this can all inspire us, and this brings fun into the house. It helps with the social purpose of all coming together. You know, in another aspect of artists, I really like, or Chrissy Teigen, I think she's great. And she created a wedding for her 3-year-old daughter's stuffed animals, and then John Legend sang, and they even had a reception. These are great things to see, because we can create those as families in our homes, and that, you know, it's just brilliant. And the imagination, and brands that, so a couple of things I was reading earlier, Denny's and Bud Light creating fun backdrops. Didn't have time to do it myself, but when you're on kind of conference calls, or Ralph Lauren, fashion brands. I know it's been hard for a lot of the luxury market, but they're putting £10 million into COVID-19. I love that this one, the Hallmark, are giving 1 million cards to help people stay close whilst maintaining social distancing. That's going to help, like, with writing and getting back to letter writing, which is a wonderful thing. I think I think it's got amazing opportunities. And prior to this morning, I wanted, from what I always think, it's about asking people and having conversations and wondering kind of what's going on. So I spoke to numerous people, be from like Sony Music, UMG, through to like financial leaders and key workers and single parent friends, and asked, and it's the same subject, the same thing, and the same common theme that always came through was that we are in this together, and it's about keeping well. We are all in the same boat. We all share the same social responsibility, and we just have to stay home and do our bit. The agents I spoke to, such as the wonderful Sarah Camlett at Independent Talent, who looks after amazing A-list artists, say she's been inundated with requests for her artists and her roster. But her top priority now is her clients' welfare, and it is the client's choice what they want to put their name to, or what they want to get involved with, and how they do it. Arya Borkoff, CEO of Lion Tree Media and Tech Investment Bank, he summed it up really well for me and said, it's a revolution for humanity. It's a reset of what's most important in our lives: our health, our family, our loved ones, and most of all, human connection. Everything else plays secondary, and how we can bring a modified human behaviour towards ourselves and our planet. I think that everyone knows this, and it was one thing I love, and it's partnerships have always been key, and especially key for like talent influencers. They're a key ingredient of social responsibility, and how we kind of reach this goal. And I want to see more of them. I want to see the role reversal of artists saying, okay, I usually sell out this Wembley Stadium, but step back, tell me what you want. I want to see kind of maybe a people per hour platform where the artists say, right, this is my time, ask me the question, what do you want, what can I give? And I think that'll be really strong. And like after we come out of quarantine, then that will give to them more of a connection to their fans and make them feel accessible. And keep going back to the theme about coming together. I would love to see like huge global brands that would usually be competitors like come together, and that would create such a strong message. I don't know, it could be whoever it might be, Nike and Adidas. Okay, we're together, let's do something. I don't think that would be a bad thing at the moment. I think actually they could create really great things and give positive, and then challenge afterwards. People have talked about this today, and I just completely agree. It's about the moment. It's about focusing on what your customers need and the loyalty. And yeah, I just think that, and it's, I don't really kind of know what more I kind of feel. And what one thing I kind of do want to see, which will be really interesting for the future, is that the now, and it's creating this space for influencers who are teachers, the you know, Katie does spelling, or, you know, the NHS, and seeing what amazing things they're doing, or creating the new family Von Trapps. I'd be really interested to see how many of our kids start saying that they'd rather want to be a nurse or a teacher instead of a celebrity. You know, after we've had this amazing opportunity of creativity and having access to, you know, such the imaginations of others on social media, it's going to inspire them. Is it going to, you know, will they see someone, oh, I'm going to pick up a guitar, you know, oh my God, I can finally see stars in the sky because there's less airplanes going around. Oh, I want to be an astronomer. So I think that artists, influencers, whoever you are, come together, entertain me before I kill my family, please.
Great. That's like, what I'm really loving is I feel like there's a real, like you speaking to celebrities, and then also the contact that you have with influencers, there feels like a real leveling field right now. And it feels, you know, to your point, there's a real inspiration. And I think stepping away from kids wanting to be celebrities is great, because to your point, to be an astronomer, or what else can you see and feel right now? Because we're kind of going back to our roots in one way and adapting to 21st century technology. So I just think that's, and I like to hear again, everybody speaks, you know, the communities coming through again and again. So I just think that's really powerful.
I think everyone's
great. Thank you.
I got one final thing. I kind of feel that, really do feel, if you can't say that at the moment, if you can't do it, then I just think you should just, for the moment, just keep your platform quiet.
Well, I think that's very fair. Kate, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And lovely, I'm delighted to welcome Mary Dawson-Keane from Takumi.
Keane Dawson. Get it right, girl.
Exactly. Home parenting. Schooling, should I say? Parenting's fine.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, how are you, Maria?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent.
Adapted
That's
to the
good.
new normal. Yes.
I'm glad someone is.
This is it. I'm looking forward to hearing your talks. You've got how you're adapting to it, and we'll have lots of questions at the end, but I'll stop talking for now, and I want to hear your great story.
Sure. So we put together a deck. I don't want to kill people by PowerPoint, but why don't we do, hopefully we can skip stuff if it sounds at all repetitive, because my esteemed colleagues who spoke before me this morning. But I'm going to launch it now. So I'll share my screen, and hopefully that'll work. There we go. There we are. There it is. Great. Okay. So this is interesting times, right? And I think one of the things that has been said a lot this morning is just how every day there is some new and, you know, unexpected development. I think that's partially due to the fact that this is happening in real time, and it's not a story. It's actually the way that life is actually emerging. And clearly governments and organizations, global organizations, are trying to managing the messaging themselves about, you know, to avoid there being mass panic and, you know, the extremes of behavior that, you know, fear can actually create. But I think right now what we are seeing in some places certainly is that we are beginning to you know, reconnect, if you like, with our humanity. And I also think that with all of this newfound time that we have, perhaps this is also an opportunity for us to revisit our creativity, and also to take the opportunity to, you know, rediscover who we really are. And I think that creators are actually ideally placed to really, you know, work with brands who are thinking agile, who are thinking about what comes after COVID-19, and being proactive at this time, I think, is really, really important. So I totally understand there's been a lot of talk this morning by the other panelists about, you know, not being seen to be opportunist, but at the risk of being controversial, and as anyone who knows me will know, that's not a risk as far as I'm concerned. I actually think this is an opportunity in itself for brands to build real, authentic relationships with their consumers. And to do that, I highly recommend, as I'm sure most of my colleagues will as well, that they consider and use influencer marketing as a great way to actually connect. But let's be honest, you know, there is a lot of changes in behavior right now. And one of the biggest ones is, I'm trying to get rid of this, sorry, video, because I'm sure you're all seeing, as beautiful as we all are, the slides aren't being obscured. But anyway, I'll carry on. As we've seen right now, there has to be, you know, there has been rather a massive increase in social media usage. And I mean, the numbers speak for themselves here on the screen, but also we're seeing enormous growth in engagement. And I think that engagement is actually really the most important part of this message, because when consumers are actually, audiences are engaged, then, you know, they're much more open to understanding and learning messaging. And I think that's where the opportunity for most advertisers and brands actually exists. Turning the tap off completely, I think, is actually a very dangerous thing for brands to do now. It is not the right time to do that. But, and this is where we've got an example of how, you know, they can drive social good, and that's been spoken about a great deal this morning. I think it's interesting what Jane was saying about the trend in messaging. I think this is great, and I think, you know, Nike have done it really, really well. BrewDog have done a great job. You know, Pret have activated a really lovely campaign, and I think that is great. But a trend in messaging can also start to become quite irritating. And you have to be really careful if you're a brand to make sure that you're keeping yourself fresh. And that's also a challenge for brands, because you know, that brand activation, you know, traditionally there would have been an overarching paradigm, and we would have then activated, you know, beneath that paradigm or above that paradigm, and you know, our messaging would have been driven by the overall you know, values that the brand wanted to represent. At times like this, we've got to be very careful, I think, that we do not land up being just copycats, and because that's where I think the risk lies for brands and advertisers, and that is where the strength of influencers and creators is really, really powerful, because they have their own original spin that they can take on the brief. And you don't seem, and you're not going to look like a copycat brand trying to be the good guys out there. That's got to be very careful that you don't just look like you're just repeating what everybody else is doing. And this obviously draws into the real power of, you know, the trust. Influencers are trusted by their audiences, and if they start to behave in any kind of way that is seen or is interpreted as being inauthentic, you know, it turns them off straight away. And that's, so in a sense, when you're working with creators and influencers, you know, brands actually have, it's in the interest of the creator, and it's in the interest of the brand to essentially, you know, protect each other and to create messaging that works for that audience. And I think this is where the trust, you know, that trust, that bond between an influencer and their audience is actually essential, and it's the most powerful part of if you like, the kind of the actual trade between brands, influencers, and their audiences. You know, they, in a sense, essentially the creator is allowing the brand access to that relationship and to that trust, and that is hugely valuable to brands. And I mean, the very best creators are the ones that can also bring their own unique spin to the execution and to the messaging, and that's very, very exciting. And also, you know, the part of the transaction that I think brands need to appreciate, you know, and really fully kind of optimize in terms of, you know, setting themselves free. I think platforms like TikTok are particularly interesting in how how the creators on TikTok work in terms of, you know, bringing that playfulness and that fun element to it. And I think that's something that, you know, once we get through this period of fear and anger, which I think is, you know, psychologically where we are right now as communities and society, and the fact that this is going to go on for a long time, you know, some of the younger people that I'm speaking to, particularly 16 to 24-year-olds, are essentially already kind of like, when's this going to end? How's this going to end? And I think that this is where, you know, we will see the evolution of far more interesting and playful entertainment provided by influencers and creators. And I, you know, I for one am encouraging, as for everyone at Takumi is encouraging brands to think about that and how we can, you know, actually bring your brands to life in these unusual, seem unusual now, but this could be the new normal for the rest of the year. So I think it's really important that brands actually take, and I know that this is probably going to sound a bit controversial, like I said, but I think that this is a time to kind of realize there is an opportunity here. You know, we want to keep people in jobs and employed, and we want to keep the industry vibrant and alive. And to my mind, this is actually a hugely important time for creators, influencers, and the specialist agencies and operators who work in this space, because we can really be very proactive and help our clients to actually reconnect with their consumer, with their audience, you know, at this time. But influence has a purpose, and I think we can show you here some examples of campaigns that we've recently ran with regards to executing across all of the platforms and opening up the brief to all of our influencers. And these are some of the creatives that they came up with regard to the Who's Safe Hands campaign. And we also ourselves initiated something called the Mindful Movement, and that was on TikTok, and basically having fun and trying to get guys and girls, you know, get our audiences to, you know, engage with their influencers and think about how they can, you know, use this time to relax, to pamper themselves, just to kind of chillax. And I think that these are kind of messages and creative executions that, you know, can be turned around super fast. That's one of the things, as I said, I think was mentioned by Jane and others, that, you know, one of the great things about influencer is that you, and an influencer creative, is that it can be turned around really super fast, and you can have lots and lots of different options, which I think is a great way of testing, learning and iterating for brands at this time. And so we also, I think, are seeing the rise of the new age COVID influencer. People still want to have reasons to smile and have fun, as I've said, but also, you know, social media is, you know, churning out, you know, the COVID influencer. They're a new class of everyday influencer who are providing entertaining content. They're live streaming across Facebook, YouTube, Insta, and we're seeing, you know, a huge surge in chefs teaching cooking classes on IGTV, teachers hosting classes on YouTube, And I think obviously, as we mentioned, Mr. Wicks, you know, who's bringing not just to the kids of the country, but to the mums, the dads and the grandmas and the granddads and everybody else in between who want to kind of like, you know, it's amazing, I think, how he has brought this hope. And also as someone who, you know, quite candidly, in fact, used to find him quite his upbeatness a little bit on the irritating side. I'm now actually, you know, like I've got to say, I want to put my arms around the guy and thank him for just bringing a smile to people's faces and some positivity into their front rooms, bedrooms, backyards, wherever they're actually doing the exercise. And I think that's incredibly important to, you know, actually say that there's a, you know, the cynicism that I have experienced in the industry over these years, I'm feeling is, you know, we're now seeing this kind of genuine honesty and almost naive approach to things, which is lovely. And I think that's a really great transformative change, and something that I think we should be encouraging as much as we possibly can, because it is wonderful to think that we are actually re-identifying with our true selves. So to sum up, I think, you know, there's been a lot of negativity around influencer in the past. Understandably, you know, we're not going to get the greatest of press from, or greatest of coverage from some of the more traditional press. And I'm sure some of you probably saw my BBC interview where I had two extremely angry journalists talking to me about what qualifies people as influencers and how very dare they, which was very strange. But I think, you know, I managed to bite it back and give influencers the big up that they all deserve, especially when they work very, very hard to do a great job. But I think that we do see and expect to see influencers grow post COVID-19.
Mary, thank you very much. That was like really something else. And I think it's really nice where you talk about the creativity, that opportunity for us, and actually for a brand, the real creative people right now to execute content is the influencer. But again, you know, to not be the tired messaging. You know, the messaging is really important, but to bring creativity into that is really key. Do you think there's an opportunity for B2B with influencers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in fact, we've actually been quite surprised at the amount of B2B client activity that we've actually started, you know. There's a growth in B2B influencers, I think, is actually, and I think we'll see that continue. I think that's this period we will see people, especially anyone who's you know, I always describe creators as a mixture of mini entrepreneurs and you know, their own executive creative directors, which is a fabulous kind of combination. And if you're a specialist who specializes in, I don't know, financial services, or you know, who's maybe a former financial services consultant or whatever, I mean, you know, if you can grow an audience, you've got a business.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. I think that's really powerful. Mary, I appreciate it. I'm introducing now Fiona McKinnon from Moment Pebble. Mary, thank you. Let's see if we've got Fiona on. Hi. Hi. And then Mary, I think if you take your screen off, that would be great. There you go. Amazing. Fiona, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Great morning.
Oh, thank you. Great speakers.
Yeah, I feel like I could almost say all of the above.
Fair.
Not at the moment. I'm here.
I
spoke, my video came on like that.
1 second, I'm just going to do some muting. There we go. But Fiona, actually a little bit different though, because thinking of the Moment Company as a business, can you tell us how the Moment Company and how your business has been impacted in the recent weeks?
Yeah, so I guess I'm facetiously saying, you know, all of the above, because, you know, I'm a consumer and an observer in these strange times as well, but we're also a brand, and we're a new brand, and we're a new consumer brand. So we have a very interesting time to be looking to launch a product in these kind of current circumstances. So I'm going to kind of touch on where as Mom & Company in our current situation, we've had to adapt to the COVID situation. And for those of you that don't know the Mom & Company, we are all about creating access through tools and products to more mindful practices, and creating a more mainstream set of tools and advice that help people understand how to bring kind of moments of calm, mindfulness and meditation into their everyday busy lives. And we also want to work with healthcare specialists and experts to build a body of evidence that show that just taking little moments of calm, of joy, of fun in your day can have long-term mental health benefits. So extremely pertinent to where we're all sitting at the moment. Now, our launch product is this 2-second plug, this beautiful Moment Pebble, which is a light activated breathing device which helps you reduce your heart rate and bring calm. However, due to COVID-19, we can't get these beautiful, very timely products into people's hands due to obvious manufacturing challenges that we have at the moment, like many businesses around the world. So what would be a peak advertising opportunity for us and a peak advertising and launch time for us is something that we're now having to redress. So to that end, in the last few days, I wouldn't exactly call it a pivot. I would say we've accelerated secondary and supporting business that we had alongside our Launch Pebble product. And that was to create access to content of different types of mindful and meditation tools and techniques that can help our current audience and our backers and our followers, but also help us create an authentic loyalty following right now, because to some of the previous points we've heard, we can add value into people's everyday lives coming from a place of authenticity to our business, which is about creating mental health and mindful tools, and to get our words and our voice out there at this important time, but without pushing a product.
Nice.
So,
and actually that's a question that I was quite pertinent that I was thinking about. It's like from your opinion, why is bringing mental health conversations into the home, why is that more important now than ever before?
well, I mean, I think we can tell just from the mental health trends and the fact that mental health, mindfulness, wellness are all mainstream phrases and words that run off everybody's lips at the moment. Mental health is a big push from everyone from the NHS. So we had Every Mind Matters last year, which had great celebrity endorsement. I'm not exactly a fan of the message of mental health means that you have to be struggling in order to seek help. I think there's also a place to say mental wellness is in the same way that Joe Wicks gets you moving on the sofa. You don't have to be overweight to want to eat healthy and be fit. And we should look at mental health in the same way, and that we shouldn't, wait till we're depressed or wait till we feel we're living in that black and white space in order to want to improve our minds and want to seek out these tools that can help our mental well-being. So it's a huge trend right now. So what we would call westernized mindfulness and meditation and mental health. So that includes everything from yoga all the way through to the more kind of woo-woo, if you like, and the kind of last year it was the fastest growing trend in the US. And it's a $2 billion industry. It's projected to be, or it was before COVID, by the year 2022. You can only imagine the acceleration that we're going to see, not only now when we're all isolated, but I also think about how we re-enter the new world safely. You think about the astronauts coming back from space, going that compression chamber. What a support look like to us when we go back out into that real world? And I loved Kate's honesty and emotional delivery that she gave in her chat earlier around that kind of hope and opportunity. And I really do think that those two things need to come together. So apparently 85% of us are stressed in some way, shape or form in the UK at the moment. So meditation, mental well-being has never been more important, but it also doesn't have to be serious. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. You know, fun, lightheartedness, everything that Mary was saying about entertainment, I think is equally important for our mental health.
That's really nice. And then, like, actually thinking about, you know, you mentioned the others and you know, the focus around influencers. So as a business, you work closely with issues of mental health. What are some of the recent trends you've seen, and how does social media and influencers play a part in this?
Well, if I may, I'll just stand up and show my t-shirt. I'm wearing my Caroline Black Be Kind t-shirt today.
Very
so
good.
What better way to embody the impact that celebrities and social media platforms have on raising awareness and creating an environment for people to have a conversation. You know, this is Keith Lemon's work of art to support Samaritans off the back of honouring, you know, Caroline Flack. Big fan of Russell Brand and everything he does in the addiction and recovery space. You look at someone like Rio Ferdinand and the impact his BBC documentary around grief and recreation of the family had. Reese Witherspoon has just kicked off a great series, Shine On, in the US, which is fantastic. Love her. And they all are adding value and authenticity because of their own stories. And I think that the place that they play is of being a signpost. So they're not necessarily the end destination. They're perhaps not giving you the practical advice that you need, but they're certainly the signposts of where to seek that out. And they are also creating that vulnerability and environment that opens up a more open and frank conversation. And, you know, as we've heard earlier today, I think, Maria, you're saying it's a bit of a leveling the field. You know, everyone's experiencing the same, and I think that that's really important. I do think some people can get it wrong. Please enter side left Ant Middleton. He kind of backed up his brands this week with comments around COVID without being informed. And you can see, you know, he said it didn't impact him, doesn't impact me, I don't care about it. And you've seen him in recent days try to redress this by getting dressed up in his army gear and trying to pull on his previous persona and heartstrings, and it's really falling flat. So it's going to be interesting to see how he picks this up again, and his TV shows come out, and to see how that's going to resonate for his previous loyal audience. But I would say there's kind of two types of celebs in this space. There's the Russell Brands and the Reese Witherspoons and the Fern Cottons and all of those guys that do this great signposting job. And then there's also the professional celebrities, I call them as well. So people like Brene Brown, Jason Stevenson, who's someone I meditate with almost every day, Tony Robbins from a life coaching perspective, and they have become celebrities because of the success and appeal of the practical advice that they give. And I would say for all those celebs that are the signposters, there's a big army of professional help that they've sought underneath them, and that's the group that at Moment Company we are looking to engage with. So those that can actually give the practical advice, and I like to think of them as the more quiet professionals. They're the guys that are offering that intimate, unique, practical tips to help people with their mental health. And also love the fact that we've also this morning talked about financial practical tips, parenting. You know, stress doesn't always have to be the traditional mental health triggers that we imagine. Just understanding, can I take a mortgage break? Who do I seek out that advice from? And people being very practical with their support, I think is important right now as well.
I think it's really powerful, actually. And to your point, yeah, these are all stress bites right now, and it doesn't come under the umbrella of mental health, but it does cause stress. And yet mortgage break, I'm quite sure, is quite topical for a lot of people on this call. So then thinking about Moment Pebble, how will this period in time impact you as a business, the Moment Company?
Well, as I said up front, we are a physical device business who's not able to get our physical device in people's hands. So we have accelerated our content program. So we are reaching out to everyone from psychologists, psychiatrists, yoga teachers, meditation experts, breathing and breath work, professionals who are personal influencers. There are people that are used to a more one-to-one environment, and as I say, they're kind of like the quiet social force, and we are creating a platform that will allow them to give their tips and tools directly to a mass audience and to our followers. And I think that that's really important to us, that it's not a deviation from our brand. It's very much in our tone. It's very much accessibility for all. We're going to be producing content that reaches the whole spectrum of what mental wellness means to people and the practical advice that we can give, and then allows us, when we are ready to launch our physical products and are ready to go back into the world of advertising, we have a brand, a following, and an authenticity that will resonate with our audience. And so that's really how we have adapted our launch in these times. But I would also like to just take a little brief moment to comment on some of the other speakers this morning that talked about, I think it was Scott that said deeds, not words. That's exactly, you know, what I think is important. We want to give people this free content because it's not about what we say, it's about what we do that will be remembered. Brewdog, I think, are just awesome, and it's not just because they're Scottish, but they to me just epitomise positivity. You know, even just yesterday they gave out their recipes for all of their beers, so you can do it at home. Like, I just love all the different ways that they're reaching out to that consumer base. People taking salary cuts, that's huge as well. But when this is all said and done, and it will be over, and we all come back to the real world, I really hope that brands take on board this time of change, not just from a marketing perspective and what they give out to their consumers, but they follow that through to their staff as well, and everybody that touches their business, their suppliers, how they pay their creditors, whatever it might be. I have personal experience of brands that are consumer facing that tell a wonderful story and have posters on the wall about how approachable and how fun and environments they are to work in, and they have no programs to deliver that, and they have nothing that shows the people that work for them that they walk the talk. So yes, it's important from a direct to consumer perspective that brands get that messaging right, but I feel it's equally as important that they get that message right to their staff. Now, do you really need to furlough? How do you communicate to your teams in this time, which all adds to the mental health story as well, and that resonates longer than just the time that we're locked inside.
Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful point there about it's a real opportunity, not just in terms of how they find their values and purpose, but they carry that on. Yeah, and you know, exactly, just paying people time. Just one question last, actually, that I was just thinking about. So for everybody listening, is where can people get moments from you guys?
So literally today is our launch day. We have 3 pieces of content that are going out, and we're focused around a wonderful chap called Benedict Beaumont, Ben, who's a Brit living in Canada, and he is a breathwork specialist, and he's created a series of bespoke videos to us and exercises which focus on lung health, which for COVID-19 is super important. So there's a number of different ways. I'm actually going to be posting on LinkedIn, which is not a usual forum for, you know, that we think of as a social influencing forum, but I also am passionate about bringing these meditation and mindful tools into the workplace. We'll all do them at home now as part of our working day. How can we make sure that we carry those on into our workplaces when we return? So there'll be LinkedIn, Instagram, of course, and our IGTV, our Moment Pebble Facebook page, and also our momentpebble.com blog series as well. So all the usual suspects of our social media platforms.
And Fiona, thank you very much. Congratulations for launch there. I didn't actually realise it was such an auspicious day for you. So wishing you literally all the success this time. Thank you. Thanks. I'm going to stop, and I've got one question actually from somebody. It's from Mary Dawson Keane. So I'm going to bring Mary back in as I am. If Mary, are you available?
Yeah, sure, I'm here. And
Great.
it's just one thing, Maria. My name is Mary Keane Dawson, not
Mary
Dawson.
Keane Dawson. Did I
Sorry,
say it the
don't
other
worry,
way
it's
around?
okay. It's just if anyone's looking
Totally, naturally.
Yeah,
Yes.
don't worry, it's fine.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Cool.
Thanks for that. Mary Keane Dawson. It's from David Robinson. His question to you would be, how explicit do you think brands should be with the messaging towards social distancing and lockdown? Would you directly mention lockdown or hint at it or avoid the term completely?
Well, I mean, I think, that's a really interesting question. I think it depends, quite frankly, what the client is trying to achieve. And, from the point of view of what most clients are looking to do right now is it's either going to be about, brand building or relationship building with clients, and, depending again on their product. I think it's very hard to say nay or yay. What I do know, and I think is important to say, is that the COVID-19 CEO email that everybody, including myself, sent out, over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure you've probably had millions of them in your inboxes, has really created a lot of COVID fatigue from a business perspective, because, there is a fit, there's a lot of, obviously, when you're leading companies and or you're leading a brand or whatever, you're looking for something positive to say, right? So I think that I would probably, unless it was a very good reason to use the expression lockdown, which is obviously it's quite a fearful, it's quite a fearful inducing expression. I mean, I'm not trying to be happy clappy, but like I said, with Joe Wicks, what I used to find is his irritating upbeatness. I'm now really, really happy that he's in my life, he's bringing a smile to my face. So I would really be trying to be positive energy at this time. And to Fiona's point, right now, great, sounds like a fantastic product, by the way, Fiona. I think we all need to dig deep and, like I said, reconnect with, hopefully our true selves, and get rid of the cynicism out there.
That's it. Well, I think that's spot on, Mary. Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure. And thank you, Maria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Mary, you're very welcome. I think all the panelists here is the sterling and fantastic content, I think, and it's something we all kind of needed and wanted to hear right now. So thank you for everybody attending, and that's it for today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for hosting. Bye.
Right, bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a